if you look at the structure of the neuron consists of the soma or the cell body. So the cell body, the other star-like structure you saw when you observe the histology slide of the neurons. This is the cell body, and it's also called the soma or neurosoma. And the dark stained center is the nucleus. And nucleolus is a region in the nucleus where ribosomal assembly occurs. Okay. So the neurons only have a single nucleus, which is centrally located, and the cytoplasm itself contains a whole bunch of mitochondria because they constantly need energy for nerve impulse transmission. It's an active process. And then it also contains lysosomes, Golgi complex, inclusion bodies, and a whole bunch of endoplasmic reticulum. Now, these endoplasmic reticulum is specifically called Nissl bodies. So when you try to stain them, they stain really, really dark, and their main job is to synthesize proteins for all the proteins that are required in nerve impulse transmission. And the cytoskeleton also contains a whole bunch of microtubules and actin filaments, which form the neurofibrils of the cell. The neurons don't really divide after they have matured, so they don't contain any centrioles because they don't undergo any mitosis once the division is complete. So that's a very important thing to note. Neuroglial cells constantly multiply, and neurons, once they mature, they cannot undergo mitosis again for the most part. So the processes of a neuron, that is including the dendrites and axon together, are called processes. Okay. Now, the first type of process, which is dendrites, so all these structures, the branches that emerge from the soma or cell body, are the dendrites. So dendrites are the receiving ends of the neurons. They receive information and transfer it to the cell. So the more number of dendrites a cell has, the neuron has, the more information it can receive. And it provides a precise pathway for reception and processing of the information via the neuron. Okay. So the next type of process in a neuron is the axon. So the axon is the nerve fiber that originates from a mound known as the axon hillock. Okay, this is where the initial trigger zone is, meaning the initial nerve impulse originates right at the axon hillock. So right under the axon hillock, you see that the sheaths or the tail of the neuron, the process, is highly myelinated. Okay. So axon carries the nerve impulse away from the cell body towards the synaptic terminals. So the synaptic terminals are the regions where they are in contact with other nerves, specifically other dendrites. So these are called the synaptic terminal. The ends are called the synaptic terminal, and the little knob-like structure that you see are synaptic knobs. So the axon collaterals are branches of the axon. So once the axon branches off, they form several little branches, and they're called axon collaterals. These are highly branched to help in rapid transmission of nerve impulse. So the cytoplasm of the axon is called the axoplasm, and the plasma membrane of the axon specifically is called axolemma. And there's only one axon per neuron for the most case, but some of them have none at all. Now, the myelin sheath are these marshmallow-like structures in the neuron that insulate the cell and help in proper transmission of nerve impulse. If you remember that the myelin sheath in the peripheral nervous system is formed by Schwann cells, and the central nervous system, the myelin sheath is formed by oligodendrocytes specifically. Okay. So the myelin sheath consists of mostly lipids and 20% protein, and they consist of the plasma membrane of glial cells. So these are the glials, the axon that are covered with myelin sheaths, and the process of formation of myelin sheath is called myelination. And the myelin sheath itself is layers, multiple sheets of myelin, and the regions in between myelinated regions of the axon are called the nodes of Ranvier. Now this insulation helps in speeding up nerve impulse, and they move by something called as saltatory movement or saltatory conduction. So when a nerve impulse is transmitted via the axon, it appears as though they are jumping from one node to the other. Okay, so these nodes of Ranvier contain several voltage-gated ion channels, and every time when a nerve impulse is transmitted, they basically jump from one node to the other. So this is called saltatory conduction. So there are some diseases that are associated with the myelin sheath degeneration, like multiple sclerosis. Multiple sclerosis is a condition wherein the cells of the immune system attack the myelin sheaths. Okay, so when this happens, the conduction system is disrupted and the person experiences double vision, tremors, numbness, and speech defects. Most people are diagnosed with the condition from in between the age of 20 to 40, and it is fatal usually after 25, 30, and sometimes even 50 years after diagnosis. So people with multiple sclerosis are capable of living a normal life, except for when they have flare-ups. Now, multiple sclerosis is a lifelong condition, and people experience flare-up maybe when they have a bacterial infection or a viral infection, maybe certain types of injections or vaccinations. Stress and fatigue can also cause a flare-up of multiple sclerosis. Till now, there is no cure for multiple sclerosis. The other disease that is not so commonly known is Tay-Sachs disease. Now, Tay-Sachs disease is an inherited disorder, and it's mostly found in people of Eastern European and Jewish ancestry. And people with Tay-Sachs disease, they have this condition due to the excessive accumulation of lipids in myelin sheath. So this lipid is normally decomposed by lysosomal enzyme. So when there's a defect in the gene that causes decomposition of glycolipids, it causes excessive deposition of lipids in the myelin sheath. Okay, so this is an inherited disorder, but then glycolipids, well, they are important for the nerve cells. So you cannot have no glycolipids in the nerve cell at all. So this particular disease is very fatal. So people who are actually affected with Tay-Sachs disease, they can die very early, about the age of 4. But there are people who can just be carriers, meaning they can just carry the gene for Tay-Sachs but not be completely affected with it.